There's a little known guitar company that's in Germany called Framus. Actually, Framus makes all kinds of instruments, but I became acquainted with the Framus brand when I was just a kid, and that's a long time ago. One of my heroes, a Canadian by the name of Larry Wilson, was playing a Framus guitar when I was 12, 13 years old, and I was very impressed with the tone and the playability of that guitar. Now, I was not much of a guitar player at the time, so I just watched what he did, and finally I decided I wanted to have my own Framus guitar, so I began to buy them when I was a teenager. I was an entrepreneur when I was a kid. I always had a paper route. I was always fixing up old bicycles and reselling them, and I found enough money to be able to buy a few Framus guitars out of the newspaper. But the ones that I had were junk. They weren't easy to play. I didn't know how to work on them, but I kept at it. And now I think over the last few years, the tally of the Framus guitars that I've owned has reached way more than the 200 mark. And this one right here is one of my favorites. This is a early 70s Framus jumbo body with a violin back on it. And when I say violin back, the back of the guitar is shaped just like the back of a violin. Therefore, it has no bracing on the back on the inside. But the tone of this guitar is just fantastic, in my opinion. Not everybody loves a guitar that plays quietly, and these are actually quiet guitars. But the neck on these guitars is very fine. And when I say fine, I mean that it is a narrower neck, and it's also thinner. But it's a very strong neck, and it can be adjusted down or up in order to make the action lower or higher. But the action on this guitar is incredibly close to the frets. Probably one of the closest guitars for action that we've ever had in the shop. But it plays beautifully and has a beautiful tone as well. The Framus company was started during the Second World War in Germany. The history goes something like this. The instrument makers decided to move out of the cities and into the forest. And they went down into the southern part of Germany where they could hide in plain sight, basically. When the Allied troops were coming into southern Germany, they were there as citizens, not as soldiers, and they were not being bombed. Their craft was saved. Their tools were saved. And instead of making violins and cellos and banjos, they began to make guitars for the Allied forces that remained in Europe after the war was over. And the guitars became wildly famous with the troops that were there because they were playable and they were good-looking instruments. That spread to being a strong distribution effort in Canada and the United States and all the other countries of the world as well. You'll find Framus guitars in every country that you can go to. But thus, I have this long history with the Framus brand. This one that I have in my hand, being more than 40 or 50 years old, is as good as it was when it was brand new. If you would like to get a brand new Framus guitar, you can just contact Framus USA and purchase a brand new Framus guitar, either made in Germany or made in China. But the brand is just as good, just as strong of quality as it was back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. say a little bit about the price of these guitars. You can see that this one is priced at $800, and that does not come with a case. I think my first Framus guitar that I purchased in the mid-70s, I bought for $50 or $60. And I could buy them for less than $100 up until about 10 years ago. Then after that, the price began to go up. This one is well worth $800. In fact, if I compared it with some of the other guitars that I own right now, I have some that are worth $4,000 or $5,000 that don't play any better or sound any better than this guitar. And I would highly encourage you to watch for the brand. And if you find any that are on Craigslist for $50, buy them and bring them to me, and I will gladly give you a finder's fee, $10.